That if we didn't redistribute the wealth, that would become an oligarchy like Europe. Okay? So he was a very conservative Republican, was a tremendous advocate of redistribution of wealth. And he felt the two appropriate ways to do it was through the income tax and through the inheritance tax.
I didn't get no love to
And if
that.
you go back to Jefferson, and there's a reason he's on Mount Rushmore, as is Roosevelt, one of the two most brilliant human beings that has ever lived, let alone presidents of the United States. And both of them came to that conclusion. As did another great person named Dwight David Eisenhower, who was also a president. You know, he was the commander of the army.
I'm only being
He was a general. He was a general of the army. He commanded the command absolutely. And he came to that same conclusion. So we have three of the greatest leaders and intellectuals in our nation's history that all have come to that very same conclusion. So what is it that is missing in the debate that we have today? The debates that we have today are individuals that really haven't learned the lessons of history, nor have they understood the wisdom of our founding fathers. Okay?
Can I, may I ask
Thank you.
a question? Like you mentioned Eisenhower, and I know I'm talking about different ways, but that is yeah, you're talking about Theodore, I'm talking about Franklin Delano. If I could ask you just two questions about what you think of Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1944, before he died, spoke of the Second Bill of Rights, the right for every American to have affordable housing, education, recreation, medical care, and then there was Dwight D. Eisenhower's farewell address to the nation when he spoke of the military-industrial congressional complex or military-industrial complex, and just from somebody who lived in a time that was more relevant to what had happened recently, I suppose.
If you go back to Jefferson, there was tremendous wealth disparity during the period of Jefferson. Capitalism, where the wealthy were landed gentry, and Jefferson said that the democracy can't survive unless we redistribute the wealth. Roosevelt came to the same conclusion 100 and some years later, that the democracy can't survive unless we properly redistribute the wealth.
Are you talking about Franklin Delano?
Franklin Delano. Okay. No, this is Teddy Roosevelt.
Okay.
Franklin Roosevelt was in a different situation in terms of he was more concerned about how do you reallocate capital to benefit the broad masses, which is also wealth distribution. But you have to have that incorporated with personal initiative and incentive. Okay, you can't take out human nature.
Yeah,
Communism didn't work because they ignored human nature.
Sure.
Okay.
Communism is working really great in China. I mean, look how much money we owe them. We're borrowing from the biggest communist government in the world, next to Russia. I don't know which one is bigger. I think China is bigger. Yeah, it's true.
Neither is China.
You're right. You're
If
right.
you look at China, China is not a communist state. China has always been, and will probably be in the future, a system of military
You're saying it's a dictatorship?
Okay,
But it's communism.
Well,
No, it's fierce capitalism.
It's just a one-party system.
it's
There's
a
a
one-party
difference.
system, exactly. And but in communism, in the Chinese model of capitalism, and a system of plutocracy, where there are a few very powerful, wealthy people that control China, and these are warlords. So what you have is a feudal warlord society that is using the best of capitalism, or what they think may be the best capitalism, and they're using a feudalistic approach of warlords as the intellectual power
to promote a system, and it actually works quite well.
Well, and I think we might be kind of gravitating toward that, because look at us, we have very few powerful people in the country that are running the country.
The plutocracy. Where the very few wealthy are controlling the politicians.
Right. And not only do those wealthy control the politicians, but they also control our military, and we have a huge vast of wealth that's being distributed to weaponry.
Well, always follow the money. Who benefits? Okay, Eisenhower again warned us of the military-industrial complex. Okay, so follow the money, and who's making the money? If you go to Fortune magazine, there was an article recently, and I don't remember the issue, where J.P. Morgan was addressed as they were developing gold fields in Afghanistan. If you go to the current issue of Scientific American, there's an article on the wealth of the natural resources and minerals in Afghanistan. It's in the trillions of dollars. Now, who benefits from that? Remember, the military is a pawn of the politician. And so, who drives the political system? Those that have the power and the wealth. Okay, always been that way, will likely always be that way.
But it's growing. It's gotten so much worse.
That's what I think what this is about.
I know.
This is what this is really about. So how do you distribute wealth equitably in a democracy where everyone wins?
But there almost is none. We're constantly growing into debt.
Say again?
We're constantly going into debt over and over again, are we not? Like we're paying off bills to pay more bills, to get more money, and things keep coming back, and then like it's just gonna keep spiraling.
Yeah.
And that's what's been going on, and now we're not actually using any money. I mean, our money isn't even good anymore.
Think of this, we're borrowing money from a third world country to fight wars in other third world countries. Now what is the insanity of that?
Well, there's no sense in us fighting other people's wars, and that's another reason why this is here.
Well, but what's this about? It's about the natural resources.
It's about scarcity.
It's about scarcity of resources.
It's a scarcity-based
and getting
economy.
control of the scarcity of resources, which is in Afghanistan, which is in Iraq, which is
scarcity here.
And unfortunately, you know, right now, what I think all of us are asking is, okay, now we're beginning to understand this. So how do we get a handle on this, and how do we take this so that the people, in their, really wisdom. The beauty of a democracy is there's infinite wisdom collectively. So how do we take this infinite wisdom and transcend this into, okay, what is our policy and what do we stand for as a nation? Do we stand for the rights of the very few that are looking at it from their selfish perspective, or are we looking at what benefits the good and the whole for everyone, so it turns out to be a win-win?
Do you go toward socialism? I mean, how do you fix it? How do you redistribute that wealth? How do you go backwards? How do you take money? I mean, we can't even tax the rich anymore.
Well, we're being taxed for their own
The
dollars.
reason that you don't tax the rich is because the rich, unfortunately, recently have had so much power that they are in charge of who gets elected.
I know.
And the lobbyists have so much power that they are influencing the decisions that are being made in the democracy. And that becomes a plutocracy. So the issue right now that I think this is all about is how do we redistribute the wealth? How do we go back to the democratic form of government?
Without lobbyists.
Okay, I mean there are 20-some thousand lobbyists in Congress right now.
Can we fire them
Do you
all?
see banning corporate personhood as an answer?
Say again?
Do you see banning corporate personhood as an answer? As part of the answer? Corporations are legally their own person.
I think the worst decision that the Supreme Court has ever made was that they treat corporations as an individual. Okay? Now, how do you put a corporation in prison? How do you provide capital punishment for a corporation?
So
You can't do that, right?
Yeah.
So somehow the wisdom of the Supreme Court has been perverted, and I think we have brilliant men like Roberts at the Supreme Court, but somehow their wisdom has been distorted in terms of what is a person and what is a corporation. Because this was voted on because of the corporation have the rights to contribute to political campaigns like an individual.
Do you think this all came from like Reagan and his sort of undoing of
Ronald Reagan I was on his National Finance Committee.
Oh, really?
And I was on the state steering committee for Ronald